Greetings, YouTube! The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And today we are going to be following up on our video that we did on Weapon Masteries, particularly the Weapon Mastery Slow. We're following that up with a character build that I call Slowhand Vaesh, who works with the slow weapon mastery, particularly with the whip, but with a few other weapon masteries. This is a combination of about 3 different weapon masteries. So we're going to go over this. We're going to talk about everything that goes into this character class. Lots to go over, lots to talk about. Stay tuned and don't go away. All right, before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a question or comment. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, and don't forget to share this video. And I've got 2 of my adventures that I have written up here that are available in links below at Dungeon Masters Guild. So first one is Vault of the Worm, and the second one is the Painted Rock. So go over to Dungeon Masters Guild, check them out, and if you are interested, they are there. All right, let's get into the build. So as you know, I start out, we're going to talk about, the classes and the races and all of that stuff we're going to be using. And I like to go over each thing kind of one at a time. So this class is going to be based off of the race/species of Frost Giant Goliath. So let's take a look at that. Here is the Goliath class. The Goliath species/race. I think for 2024, this is one of the best races that there is because they've got so much extra stuff that they can do. So really quick, Goliaths, right off the bat, get a speed of 35. That's awesome. They've got a giant ancestry. We are taking the Frost Giant one, but there's a lot of different choices that you can make. But with the Frost Giant one, you get Frost's Chill. So when you hit a target with an attack roll and deal damage to it, you can also deal a d6 cold damage to the target, and you reduce its speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. So that is kind of the theme and the basis for this build, is to slow things down. You can use that a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest. So that's the big one. In addition, we're going to get a large form at 5th level that gives us some extra speed, and then we've got a powerful build that gives us advantage on checks to end grapples. So that is the race/species we're taking. Our proficiency bonus at this point is +2. The background we're taking is Baldur's Gate Urchin, because I wanted a couple of things that would go along a little bit with kind of the roguish nature of this character, because this character is going to be a rogue fighter. So with the Baldur's Gate Urchin, we took Sleight of Hand and Stealth to be proficient in. We get a free origin feat, which is going to be lucky, and then we took a +2 to Dex and a +1 to Strength. We are going to be relying mostly on Dexterity for our weapon attacks and damage. Standard array, we're ending up with a Strength of 14, Dex of 17, Con of 14, Intelligence of 10, Wisdom of 12, Charisma of 8. Not going to be using a lot of Charisma, and this character is not necessarily going to be a skill monkey. We are starting out with Studded Leather, Scimitar, Short Sword, Thieves' Tools, and Explorer's Kit. And we are starting as a first-level rogue. I wanted that because I wanted all of the proficiencies that a rogue starts out with. This character is not going to be using heavy armor, so I have taken that away. I don't plan on having this character be next to anything for very long once it's attacked. So the need to be a defender is not there. This is not a defender. This is not a damage-dealing character, so let me put that out there right now. The focus of this one is not to do a ton of damage. The focus of this character is not to be a tank. The focus of this character is to control with a little bit of damage. So they're not like top tier for damage, but I would say just below top tier. But control is the big thing we want, and particularly with slowing things down. So we're taking the rogue. We're getting an AC of 15, so we've got our Dex +3 plus the 12 from the Studded Leather gives us a 15. we are becoming proficient in perception, acrobatics, investigation, insight. We've got stealth and sleight of hand expertise. 2024 really changed the interaction with traps. I'm going to do a different video on that to talk about that a little bit. And then we've got sneak attack D6. We are using the scimitar and short sword weapon masteries. So let's take a look at that really quick. All right, here we go. Short sword and scimitar happen to be right next to each other. A scimitar is a finesse and light weapon, meaning finesse means that we can use our strength or dex for attack and damage rolls. That's great. We're a dex-based character with a little bit of strength. And then a light attack means that we can make a attack as a bonus action with an offhand weapon if it is at least a light weapon. So, but the scimitar has nick, meaning that when we make the extra attack of the light property, we make it as part of the attack. So that means we attack with the scimitar and then we attack with the short sword as part of the attack action. And the short sword has vex, meaning if we hit a creature with this and we deal damage to it, we have advantage on our next attack roll. So that's just a little something, something, but that's going to come in later on with this build. So our primary attack rotation at this point is going to be a scimitar with the primary hand, and then because the scimitar has the nick property, we can have a short sword in the offhand. So scimitar is light and nick. It will proc off both of those, and then the short sword will be able to attack with, and that will do the vex. And so the next round that we have, we'll be able to have advantage. And then right now, we're doing 9.54 damage this is at first level. All right, next level, we are taking another level of rogue. Our proficiency bonus and our AC have not changed. We're getting cunning action, so we can use our bonus action. And because we've got the nick feature in here with the scimitar, our bonus action is free. So we can dash, we can disengage, and we can hide as a bonus action. Great. And our attacks haven't changed at all. They're still scimitar in the primary hand, light nick combo, triggers the short sword to go, and at this point we're just doing a d6 with the short sword. We don't get to add our dex bonus to that one, and the damage is still the same. At this point we could be, because we've got two uses of our frost giant, we could be putting this in here as an extra d6 of damage and then slowing the opponent down by 10 feet. I haven't put it in here yet, but we could be using that at some point. And then at third level, we are taking another level of rogue. So a rogue 3, proficiency bonus, AC doesn't change. We're taking swashbuckler as our subclass. And with swashbuckler, we get fancy footwork and we get rockish audacity. So fancy footwork says if we attack a creature, we can run away from that creature, on only that creature that we attacked, without incurring a opportunity attack. And then rockish audacity, we get two things from this. We're not going to really get anything from the first thing because our charisma stinks, but you could use your charisma bonus as a bonus to your AC if you want. Our charisma is at a -1, so we don't really want to do that. But more importantly, if we are the only ones that are right next to an opponent, then we get to use our sneak attack, which is great. If we have disadvantage, however, we don't. But we get to use our sneak attack, so pretty much we're going to be getting sneak attack all the time. Sneak attack goes up to a 2d6, and we get steady aim, which is bonus action to get some extra bonuses to hit. We're never going to use that. We don't really care. We are still at a scimitar, light, nick, which triggers the short sword in the other hand, and we get a little bit more damage because our sneak attack just went up. That's basically it at this point. Okay, at fourth level, we're done with rogue at this point, and now we're switching over to fighter. So we're taking our first level of fighter at fourth level, so we're a fighter 1. Proficiency bonus, AC doesn't change. We get the fighting style, which is 2-weapon fighting. That allows us to add our dex bonus to our damage for our offhand attack, which is going to be that short sword. We get 2 uses of second wind, and now we're taking the weapon mastery whip. We get 3 of them: whip, heavy crossbow, and short bow. So I'm getting heavy crossbow and short bow just in case I need to use a ranged attack. We're still at scimitar and short sword, but our damage went up a little bit because of 2-weapon fighting. We still haven't started fighting with the whip yet. That's going to be a little while, but we are getting there. And again, during all of this, we could be using, still have the 2 uses of the Frost Giant's Chill from Goliath, and we could be using that to do an extra d6 of damage and then slowing the opponent down. At 5th level, we're taking another level of fighter, so we're fighter 2. Our proficiency goes to a +3, so that gives us a bonus to hit. And we get Action Surge and Tactical Mind. Action Surge allows us to do an extra action that cannot be a magic action. And Tactical Mind's just okay. We will use that every once in a while. It's just a nice flavor thing. So our primary attacks are still going to be Scimitar and Short Sword. At this point, our damage is starting to go up now because we've got an extra bonus to hit. Our sneak attack has gone up, and we had the 2-weapon fighting. If we wanted to at this point, we could still use the Frost Giant's Chill for an extra d6. Now we've got 3 uses of that per day, or per 8-hour rest. And we have Action Surge, which we could be using. Now, if we take a look at Fighter, so I particularly want to look at Action Surge. So you can use this feature once, and then you don't get another one until you finish a short rest, which is really important. 17th level, you can use it twice before a rest, but only once a turn. So, and then Tactical Mind, there it is. When we fail an ability check, you can expend a use of your second wind to push yourself towards success. So rather than gaining hit points, you could roll a d10 and add it to an ability check. And that is just okay. So at 6th level, we are getting Fighter 3. Our proficiency bonus, AC, have not changed. However, we get a subclass. We are taking Battle Master, which you can see our maneuver DC at this point is a 14. We get 4 d8s through combat superiority, and then we get 3 maneuvers. We're taking maneuvering attacks. We attack. We hit, we add the die to the damage, and then we can allow a ally to move. So we're taking maneuvering attack, trip attack, and push attack. So let's take a look at those maneuvers here. So here's maneuvering attack. So when we hit a creature, we expend a die, and then we can do the extra damage, and we can choose a willing creature who can see or hear us, and that creature can use its reaction to move up to half its speed without provoking an attack of opportunity. So that's really awesome. In addition, we're getting trip attack and push attack. So trip attack with this is really important because if we're going to be slowing things down, then we want to use up as much of their movement as possible. And that is where trip attack comes in, because when you get tripped and you're prone, you have to use half your movement to stand up. So we're getting that one. You use your die, you do your damage, and then they have to make a strength saving throw. Strength saving throws are not the best. And then we have push attack. So again, this is an important one if we're slowing them down. If we push them back, they have to use more of the movement that they don't have. So when we hit, we use a die, we do the damage. If it's large or smaller, it must succeed on a saving throw or it is pushed back 15 feet. Now, our damage at this point is going up because we're adding that maneuver die in here. So right now, what I've got for our primary attack is I've got our scimitar, which is light and has the nick property and the finesse property. So when we attack with that, it triggers the short sword as part of that attack. So we attack with the short sword, which now has Vex. Then we get sneak attack. We're adding the superiority die. And we're adding the frost damage at this point because we can use that 3 times per long rest. And our damage at this point is around 24 on average. It's got Nick and Vex. Vex doesn't actually come in until the next round. And then also we're getting a -10 to the opponent's move because of the frost. So at 7th level, this is where we are finally going to bring the whip in. So we're taking level of fighter. So we're fighter 4. Our proficiency is +3. AC is now a 17 because our dex is going up. And we're going to add some items. And our maneuver DC goes up because our dex goes up. And our maneuver DC is based off of strength or dex. So we are taking dual wielder. So let's take a look at the dual wielder feat. So we have to be 4th level to take this, which we are, and then a strength or dex of 13 or better, which we have. So we can increase our strength or dex by 1, which we did. So our dex goes to 18. Then we get enhanced dual wielding. When you take the attack action on your turn and attack with a weapon that has the light property, scimitar, you can make 1 extra attack as a bonus action later on the same turn with a different weapon, which must be a melee weapon that lacks the two-handed property, a whip. You don't add your ability modifier to the extra attack's damage unless that modifier is negative. Okay, so what's really important about this is, wait a minute, Doc, you've got a scimitar in one hand and you've got a short sword in the other hand. So how are you going to use that whip? Okay, well, let's talk about that. So the next thing down says quick draw. You can draw or stow 2 weapons that lack the two-handed property when you would normally be able to draw or stow only one. So let's look at the base mechanic of that particular rule. Under the attack action in the player's handbook on the rules glossary, it talks about equipping and unequipping weapons. So a base character can either equip or unequip 1 weapon when you make an attack as part of this action. So when you do the attack action, you can either pull 1 weapon out or you can stow 1 weapon. You can't do both. You do so either before or after the attack. So you just decide when you're going to do it. If you equip a weapon before an attack, you don't need to use it for that attack. Equipping a weapon includes drawing it from the sheath or picking it up. Unequipping a weapon includes sheathing, stowing, or dropping it. Dropping is not a free action. Let me repeat that. Dropping is not a free action. And then we can move between attacks. So with the dual wielder, we can equip or unequip twice. Or we can mix and match, which means we can stow a weapon and then we can draw a weapon. So it's really important. What that means is that we now attack with the scimitar, which is a +1 scimitar. I've got up there, we added a +1 scimitar. So we attack with the scimitar, which is a light, and it is also a finesse and a nick weapon. Those 3 things. And that triggers that nick attack from the offhand, which is the short sword. So we're still part of this initial attack action. So we attack with the scimitar, which triggers the short sword to attack. And then immediately after that part of the attack action, we can stow or unequip the short sword. So we sheathe the short sword, and we can equip, we pull out the whip off of our belt, because we can do that with dual wielder now. And then as our bonus action, we use the whip, because dual wielder allows us to use we used the scimitar, we used the light weapon property, and we used that to attack with the short sword, but it also triggered a dual wielder attack as a bonus action, which is a whip, which is a weapon that does not have the two-handed property. And then we've got sneak attack, superiority die, and frost in there. Our damage now goes up to 30.72. Now the whip is a +1 whip. We can only do a D4 +1. That's it. That's all we can do with the whip. But our damage is up to a 31, and we've got Nick and Vex. So when we hit with that short sword, the Vex property comes in, and we have advantage. If you roll 2 20s, the average of those two usually is not a 10, it's about a 15. So we have essentially a 95% chance to hit with that whip. And if we hit with the whip, plus we use the frost, we're going to slow by 20 feet because the whip has the slow feature. So let's take a look at that. So here's the whip. It is a finesse weapon, which means we can use our dex. It is reach, but we don't necessarily care about that. We could move, before we took our our bonus action attack, we could move back 5 feet and then attack with this. And it also has slow. So if we hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to it, we reduce its speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. If the creature is hit more than once by weapons that have this property, which we didn't hit it with any other weapons that have this property, the speed reduction doesn't exceed 10 feet. What we did do is we hit it with the Frost Giant's Chill, which reduced it 10 feet in addition to the slow. So now their movement is reduced by 20 feet. So in addition to all this, we added a +1 scimitar, like I said, a +1 short sword, a +1 whip, and +1 studded leather, which moves our AC up to 17. So we are now moving up in the world with all of this, and the attacks are going to get absolutely ridiculous. So let's look at 8th level. At 8th level, we're taking another level of fighter, and we're getting an extra attack, which means when we take the attack action, we get an extra attack with the weapon that is in our primary hand, and we get tactical shift. So let's look at tactical shift. So there's extra attack, just like I said, and then tactical shift is whenever you attack, whenever you activate your second wind with a bonus action, you can move up to half your speed without provoking attacks of opportunity. We don't really care about that. It's free movement. That's really what it is. It's just free movement. But we're not going to be really using our bonus action for this because our bonus action is tied up with the whip. And because we have the fancy footwork from Swashbuckler, this is just kind of an extra. If we ever really need extra speed, we could use it. So at this point, we're getting 2 attacks with our scimitar because of extra attack. And then that in itself is triggering through the nick property and the light property, the short sword, nick attack as part of that attack action. Because we used the light property, that triggers dual wielder. So we're getting the whip attack as a bonus action, and then the sneak attack, the superiority die, and the frost. So at this point, we're up to about 37 points of damage. Nick and Vex are activated. That Vex again acts on the whip. We are doing slow from the whip and frost, and then we get a maneuver. So just imagine this. If you've got an opponent that has a 40-foot movement, and we hit them with all of this, and they fail their saving throw, and we trip them. So now their movement is a 20, and they're tripped, and we've moved away. When they stand up, they have 10 feet of movement left. So that is a thing that definitely is going to affect them quite a bit. At 9th level, we are going to be taking a little fighter, so we're fighter level 6. Our proficiency goes up to +4. We are getting another feat or ability score increase, which we're using for Slasher. So let's take a look at Slasher. All right, here's Slasher. So again, we have to be 4th level, which we are. We get a bump to our strength or our dex. We're taking a bump to our strength because we are going to be taking an ability score increase, and I don't want to waste that. This is a really important one for this build as well because we get hamstring. Once per turn when you hit a creature with an attack that deals slashing damage, so we've got a scimitar that does slashing damage, and we have a whip that does slashing damage. So we'll have 2 opportunities per turn to use this. So when we hit them, we reduce their speed by 10 feet until the start of the turn. Now, the scimitar does not have the slow property. So that means if we hit with the scimitar, their speed is going to be reduced by 10 feet. If we hit them with the whip later on with our bonus action, their speed is going to be reduced by another 10 feet. And if one of those happens to have the Frost Giant's Chill on it, their speed is going to be reduced by 30 feet. In addition, if we use the maneuver, trip, and we trip them, then they are going to be prone. If they had a 30 feet movement speed, they will not be able to stand up because their movement at that point will be a 0. And if you don't have any movement left, you cannot stand up. And in addition, with that one, we have enhanced critical. So when we get a critical with a slashing weapon, it has disadvantage on attack rolls until the start of its next turn. If we knocked it down, it's going to have that anyway. So this is pretty nasty. So let's go over the attack rotation for this. All right, so here it is. Proficiency bonus went up to +4 at this point because we're 9th level. Our maneuver DC is a 16. Our strength goes up to a 15 because of the +1 from Slasher. And then we are doing 2 attacks with our scimitar. We got Nick and Light, which triggers a short sword attack, and that has Vex. So now we've hit the opponent with a slashing weapon, and we have Slasher, meaning they take a -10 to their speed. In addition, we've hit them with the short sword, which triggers Vex. And then we have a bonus action attack because of dual wielder, which is going to be the whip. And remember, we can stow and take out a weapon in the same turn because of dual wielder. So we're going to scimitar, Nick, put a short sword, put the short sword away, pull out the whip, bonus action hit with the whip, which will do another 10 feet because of the slow mastery. And if we put the frost on top of that, then that's going to be another 10 feet for -30 feet plus a maneuver if we end up using one of our maneuvers. And that's going to be about 38 points of damage on average per round for all of this. Now, one thing I haven't brought up with this is we are not going to be able to do this rotation every single turn. So at the end of this turn, we're going to have a scimitar in one hand and a whip in the other hand. And the whip is not a light weapon. So we are not going to be able to use the light Nick property with that whip in our hand. So at the beginning of the next turn, we are going to have to we're going to have to stow the whip, and we're going to have to pull out the short sword. And we're going to attack with the scimitars and the short sword, and then we won't be able to do anything. But the next turn, we'll be able to do this. So the scimitar, short sword, whip combo, we will only be able to use that every other turn. Every other turn, we'll be doing scimitar, short sword, and then we'll get a dual wielder attack as a bonus action with another thing. And we'll be moving away. Like I said, the objective of this is to, 1, knock their speed way down. 2, try to get them prone so that they can't get back up. And 3, to move away. We want to get away as much as we can. All right, at 10th level, we're taking another level of fighter, so that we're fighter 7th. Our superiority die, we get 1 more, and we're going to take know your enemy, distracting attack, and menacing attack. We're going to add a ring of protection and an iron stone of protection. So our AC is going up to a 19, and our damage and our rotation hasn't really changed. It's still scimitar, Nick, light attack, short sword, and then the dual wielder bonus action, whip, -30 feet, all that stuff. At 11th level, we are taking another level of fighter, so we're fighter 8. We're going to take a bump to our dex, 2, so our dex goes to a 20, and we're adding a +2 scimitar, +2 short sword, +2 whip, and +2 studded leather. So our AC is now a 21. And our damage goes up to about a 46, 47, but the rest of the rotation still stays the same. The only reason the damage goes up is because we've got a better chance to hit, and we actually do some more damage. At 12th level, we are going to take another level of fighter. So we are fighter 9. We are getting Indomitable, which allows us to kind of re-roll some saving throws, and Tactical Master. So let's take a look at Tactical Master. So here are both of those abilities. So Tactical Master says when you attack with a weapon whose master property you can use, you can replace the property with push, sap, or slow. But we can only do slow once per round. So we don't really want to do the slow, but the sap actually might be nice. So if you hit a creature with this weapon, that creature has disadvantage on its next attack roll before the start of your next turn. So now we're adding in a completely extra thing on there. And we may or may not actually want to do that because we are very dependent on Nick and Vex and slow. So that is not necessarily a thing that we want to do. We can do it if we want, but it is what it is. And then we get Indomitable, which is if you fail a saving throw, you can re-roll it with a bonus equal to your fighter level. So those are the abilities that we are getting at 9th level. We are also adding Goggles of Night and Cloak of the Bat, so we get advantage on stealth checks. We get a little bit of a fly speed. This is a character without dark vision, so that'll give them dark vision. And our everything else is pretty much at this point staying the same. We're still at a minus 30-foot movement with Slow, Frost, and Slasher. At 13th level, Fighter 10, our proficiency goes up to +5. Our maneuver DC goes up to 18. We are taking disarming attack, precision attack. Our superiority die goes up to a D10. And pretty much everything else stays the same at this point. So our bonus to hit is going up a little bit. We're getting a little bit of damage, but we're still in kind of the same rotation. At 14th level, we're taking 1 level of fighter. We're a fighter 11. We get an extra attack. We're also adding a +3 scimitar, a +3 short sword, and a +3 whip. Now, instead of getting 2 scimitar attacks, we're getting 3 scimitar attacks. A short sword attack, which is triggered off of the Nick Light property from the short sword. And then we're getting a bonus attack with the whip from dual wielder. And so our damage, at this point, our damage is just going up. We're slowing things down as much as we can possibly slow them down. We're really not going to be able to slow them down any more than this. And then we get a possible maneuver. And the maneuver is getting more difficult to overcome at this point. If you happen to have a wizard in your party that has divination, then they could really help you out. At 15th level, we are going to be a fighter 12. We are taking Piercer, and we're moving our strength from a 15 to a 16. So let's take a look at what Piercer does. All right, here's the Piercer feat. We get a bump to our strength. We're going up to a 16. It's really not going to have any bearing on the build at all. It says once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack that deals piercing damage, remember we're using a short sword that does piercing damage, you can reroll 1 attack's damage dice. And you must use that new roll. So just a little extra something, something. If we crit, we can roll 1 additional damage die, determining the extra piercing damage the target takes. So just a little extra doesn't really mean a whole lot. If you can think of any other feats that I should take at this level, please leave them in the comments below. So the rotation doesn't really change. The damage is going up a little bit. You know, it's still a scimitar, short sword attack from the Nick Light property, and then the bonus dual wielder whip, as we change weapons like we can with dual wielder. And then we get sneak attack, superiority die, and the frost. And then we get a maneuver, which my preferred maneuver in this one is going to be trip. And then finally, at 16th level, we're a fighter 13. And we get another use of Indomitable, and we get studied attack. So let's take a look at what studied attacks are. Studied attack says you study your opponent and learn from each attack you make. If you make an attack roll against a creature and miss, you have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature before the end of your next turn. Because we're getting so many attacks, this actually could help quite a bit. So here we are at 16th level, and I wrote in here a possible legendary item to add, because we are pretty high level, possibly add a Blood Fury tattoo and take away the Iron Stone of Protection. So the Blood Fury tattoo's got 10 charges. It's going to give us a bunch of extra damage, necrotic damage, every time we use one of those charges. Just a little something to add to the damage. But the rotation is still essentially the same. 3 attacks with the scimitar, which trigger Nick and Light, which triggers our short sword attack. And then because we use the Nick and Light, because we use the Light attack property, then that triggers our dual wielder bonus action with the whip. After we change our weapons, we get the sneak attack, we get superiority, and we get frost. And we've got 5 uses of frost at this point and 5 superiority dice. And again, the damage is basically the same. And we are slowing the opponent down by 30 feet, and we are going to be using a maneuver, preferably trip. Now, I did want to address the Nova round for this particular fighter, and that Nova round includes using Action Surge and having a potion of speed, which gives us haste. So Action Surge gives us an extra action that we can use to do anything except for a magic action. meaning we can take the attack action again. Now, we can only do one short sword attack per round, but you can see down here I've got two, but I've got one that's a hasted, because we're going to use the short sword because it has the Vex property, and we want that to go off before we use our whip. So that action surge is going to give us an extra attack action, and the potion of speed is going to give us an extra attack that we can, or an extra action that we can use to strike or to attack or to move or dash. But if we use the attack action, we can only make one attack. So with that, that means we're going to start off doing 3 scimitars. And then that is going to trigger through Light and Nick a short sword attack with our offhand. And then we're going to action surge, and we're going to do 3 more scimitar attacks. We're going to take our hasted action, which is going to be another short sword attack. And because we used the light property this round, we are going to be able to use the whip, dual wielder bonus action to use the whip. And then that's going to come with sneak attack superiority dice and a frost ability from the Frost Giant's Goliath Chill. And that is going to do a whopping 109 damage, almost 110. And we're going to be slowing our opponent down by 30 feet. And we could get a maneuver. So we could menace them, we could trip them, we could push them. If we needed to move somebody, we could use a maneuvering attack. There's a lot of different options we can do. But that is what the Nova round for this particular build looks like. So that is the build that I have. I hope everybody enjoyed, and I will catch everybody later.